All right, greetings, class, and welcome to week number 5. That is right, week number 5 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom in its discontents class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and what we are going to be doing this week is mostly just a state of the course update, and then I will soapbox a little bit about hate speech. This will all be optional, but I will soapbox on hate speech and my feelings about it and whether or not I think it should be protected by the First Amendment and this, that, and all that other stuff. But let's go ahead and get into that state of the course update. The first thing that I want you all to be aware of as we switch to the home page here is that you will have your quote-unquote First Amendment examination that is going to be due this coming Sunday. So one thing that you all need to be aware of as you take that examination is that it is open book. And I think I've stated this before, but some of you may end up watching the check-in video this week in particular, just to make sure that you're on task prior to doing the First Amendment examination. So yes, I do just want to let you all know it's open book and there is no time limit. It is not meant to stump you or trick you or be difficult or anything like that. It's actually just meant to make sure that you understand the basic concepts that we have talked about with the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and exemptions to freedom of speech. I just want to make sure that you all understand that and can either recall it or find ways to answer the question if you don't recall it. So that is why it is open book. Again, what I recommend that you all do is probably just have at least 2 tabs open, have the quiz open in one tab, or the exam open in one tab, and then in another tab you can have Google or whatever else open. The other areas of the course can be open, whatever the case may be, but you can open up something else so that if you see a question you don't know the answer to, you can just go ahead and pop that answer in after Googling or doing whatever you need to do, looking back through the course and finding the information. So again, it's not meant to be difficult. If everybody gets a perfect score, that is fine. I won't be suspicious that anyone cheated because again, it's open book. So, it is all good for those purposes, just to go in there and do it. Last semester, most of the people who actually took it in one shot actually finished it within about 10 to 15 minutes. So it wasn't something that was taking people like an hour or more to do. When I saw times that were an hour or above, I think that those were people who were actually leaving their computer and doing things and then coming back and then finishing the quiz. Okay. So that's all of that and how all of that is going to work. And I don't know that I need to spend any more time on that part. So pause. Okay, so the next thing that you all need to be aware of is that we do have our first sync session coming up. It is actually going to be next week, so you will not have a check-in video next week. We will be visited by Leanne Lord, who is a comedian, next week, and she will be talking to us about intellectual freedom in comedy. So she came to the intellectual freedom class last time it was offered in fall of 2022. Students really enjoyed her. I always enjoy her. And so there we go. So she will be speaking with us and, she'll be talking just about whether or not, and you'll see more materials about this in the, final module of the class. So I mentioned before that I have bookend modules for this class that are a bit lighter in subject matter. So the first bookend at the beginning was about freedom of speech on campus, and then the last module, which will be the final bookend, that is going to be freedom of speech in comedy and intellectual freedom in comedy. And as you all know, there have been I know that Dave Chappelle gets the bulk of what's been said recently as far as stand-up comedy shows recently is supposed maybe like pushing the envelope a little too far or something of that nature. But Dave Chappelle is not the only one. There have been things related to Amy Schumer, Ricky Gervais, and I would also say that even though I've seen no controversy, one of my favorite comedians is Michelle Wolf. And Michelle Wolf actually dropped a new special series on Netflix last week. And I watched it last week, and it was hilarious. But I thought it was hilarious, but I could see how some other people might think that some of the things that she said was objectionable. So is everything okay to joke about or not? That is something that is a topic within intellectual freedom, and it's something that I think Leanne is a perfect person to talk about. So she will be joining us again on September the 26th to speak on those things, okay? And aside from that, it's really just going to be kind of business as usual within the course. Again, no check-in video next week. We'll have a sync session next Tuesday night, your exam. But aside from that, it's mostly just readings and modules until we get to the latter parts of October. And then in the latter parts of October, that's when your book report is going to be due. But you've got a ways to go before that. And we've got 2 book ban modules before that due date that should help you out with that book report. Okay. So that is pretty much it there. And so that's pretty much it. Really was state of the course updates. That's all that I needed to say on those. So I'm going to talk about my personal opinions on hate speech and anything that you agree with, disagree with, want to call out, discuss more, such and such. There is that free-for-all area in the discussions. Let's see where it is at. What did I call it? Well, there's questions about the course. Fun stuff. That is where you would want to go if you just wanted to react to something that I said in this course, be it in the comments to somebody else, or if you wanted to react to something I said in the check-in video. But let's go ahead and from here just kind of go to the module, and I am going to say a few things about the content in the module. So here we go, Module 5, Week 5, Hate Speech, Yes, It Is Protected. So first, I've mentioned this before in other check-in videos, but I'm going to say it again. Hate speech is protected. Whether or not it should be, that is going to be the focus of a debate in this course later in this semester. But as of right now, yes, it is protected, and I don't see that changing, particularly with the Supreme Court that we have now. So hate speech is protected in the United States, but in a lot of Western Europe, which obviously Western Europe was the catalyst for World War II and all of that. So it makes sense. But yes, in much of Western Europe, hate speech actually can be, actually is outlawed, and you can be penalized for it either with fines or I think even like some brief imprisonments in some cases. But yes, hate speech is not protected in a lot of Western European countries, but in ours it is protected. And you actually have even 2 readings here that kind of look at the 2 different sides of that. So you've got what Europe can teach America about hate speech, and then you've got no, the U.S. does not need European style hate speech laws. And so those 2 things are going to be, those 2 articles are going to be kind of at the heart of the debate that we're going to have in this class in November. So, but our debate participants are going to build on or expand on that a lot more than what you see there. Okay. But what I want to do at this time is just say, first of all, I do want to say that hopefully it will be hard for you to tell without me telling you, even though I'm going to tell you right now. But hopefully by the time this class is over, the only reason you would know my opinions on whether or not hate speech should be protected by the First Amendment would be because I told you in this video. But otherwise, I am hoping that within this class, it doesn't seem that this class is too far skewed one way or the other, too far skewed to hate speech being protected or too far skewed to hate speech being unprotected. We don't want that. All right, so hopefully, yes, again, hopefully we will, by the end of this course, it will seem like both of those sides have been fairly represented and that it is something that should be an ongoing question as opposed to something that should be decided in this class. It's bigger than this class. It should not be decided in this class. But as far as my personal opinions, I am going to say that I actually am undecided, which seems like a cop-out, but that really is what it is. It is difficult for me to say that there should be a test, kind of like how we have the Brandenburg test and the Miller test. It's hard for me to say that the Supreme Court should outlaw, or not outlaw, but the Supreme Court should remove protections from hate speech, First Amendment protections from hate speech, and then the legal system should devise some sort of test or some sort of standard to determine what actually does qualify as hate speech. To me, it's very difficult to make those determinations. For one thing, I think that a lot of what goes on in comedy could be seen by a lot of people as hate speech and could lose First Amendment protections. And one thing that I don't want to do is handcuff comedians a little too much. I think that here's where I come with it, especially from this standpoint of comedy, right? So I feel that people should be able to make the adult decision that, okay, I am going to go into a venue where a comedian is going to be performing, or I am going to turn on a comedy special or something like that. But I think people should be able to make the adult decision of, okay, I am choosing to be in the audience for this comedian. And then if this comedian offends me, then I should kind of, dust it off my shoulders, unless I'm being attacked personally or somebody else who's not a public figure is being attacked personally. But as long as it's jokes, and as long as it seems to be clear that the comedian's purpose and their goal is to make people laugh, then I think that if they're making people laugh by poking fun at certain groups, then I'm not sure that I would approve of any sort of test that would cause for that type of comedy to not have First Amendment protections, okay? Because they could be, and this is where it gets murky. And this is why I am undecided. I think that even when comedians target particular groups, and even when they punch down, and punching down can be punching down on anyone who might have been traditionally disenfranchised. So you can punch down on Black people or indigenous people or any sort of racial group that's non-white. You can punch down on women. You can punch down on queer people. You can punch down on trans people, on Muslims in this nation, etc., etc. All of that would be, I guess, considered punching down. But even if somebody is punching down and you don't care for that type of humor, I think if their intent is to make people laugh, then that speech should still be protected, in my opinion. Now, when somebody has an intent to actually spread hate or cause other people to dislike other people, or cause other people to dislike groups of people, or cause other people to want to be violent towards other people, yes, that is something that gets into an area of, okay, should that be allowed? Should that not be allowed? Now, of course, any sort of incitement to lawless action should not be allowed. So if a comedian is up there doing something that is inciting lawless action against particular groups, then absolutely that should not be protected. But I think that even if the comedian is offensive, even if what they're saying is in poor taste and out of bounds, if it appears clear that their intent is really to make people laugh, and they may have a secondary intent to make a political statement, but if they're trying to make people laugh, then I think that speech should be protected. And so that's one of the various things that I look at when we talk about outlawing hate speech is, okay, what is going to be determined as hate speech? If something is punching down at or directed at a particular demographic of people, are we going to call that hate speech even if the intent was not to cause other people to hate that group? You know what I'm saying? So that's where things get murky for me. It's very complicated. I have not really seen proof that jokes and comedy actually lead to that there's a tie-in between no, of course there could be incidents do happen where people are incited to violence and they commit violence, or they're incited to speak hate towards other people and they get hateful toward other people. That absolutely does happen. but there's no research that I've come across that suggests there's any correlation. There's any solid correlation between, okay, these jokes are happening and now this group is more at risk, or this group's oppression is directly causal or the result of comedy or that sort of thing. So that's, or to go another route, I haven't seen anything either that would suggest that comedy is causal toward any sort of violence toward particular demographics of people. And that research may be out there, but I have not discovered it yet. Okay. And so even taking it off of comedy for a second, I use comedy kind of as the lion's share example because there are some different considerations and clear considerations for intent there. But even if we remove it off of comedy, I'm not exactly sure where I am as far as removing First Amendment protections for hate speech, because I don't want anything to have protections that is likely to cause people to be physically harmed or killed, or even, mentally harmed to the point where things become unstable and unviable for them. Absolutely. So if somebody is, for instance, reading out loud some sort of speech that is causing people to say, hey, we got to get these, I'm going to use the previous president, for example. So if we have Donald Trump up there and he's talking about, well, yes, these people are coming into our country and they're bringing drugs and they're bringing violence and they're raping people and all of this stuff. If that sort of speech is causing people to want to actually commit violence toward other people or hate on other people, not just hate on them in their minds though, but I'm talking about get to the point where, okay, we should refuse to hire these people. We should burn crosses in their yard if they try to come into our neighborhoods. We should try to do all these things to keep them out and keep them away. Whether that's be violent against them or, make sure that they're not able to make a living for themselves or something of that nature. If that sort of speech is getting traction and it's widespread and it's causing people to encounter real harm, then yes, I kind of would have a reaction to that of, okay, do we really need that kind of speech? However, if that correlation is not there, or is not proven, then I'm like, okay, how can I say that someone should not be allowed to say that if there might be, I don't want to say some truth to it, but there might be some reason why this person is saying it and these people are all believing it. And we've got to get to the heart of what that reasoning is and try to figure out, how to make society better for everyone going forward. And I do think that at times the speech really does have real world consequences that have negative impacts on real people out here. And so, yes, Dr. Jace, just after saying all that, in a nutshell, I am undecided as to whether or not hate speech should or should not have First Amendment protections. And regardless of how much I read, I feel different from day to day. And I've never had a solid and stable opinion one way or the other on that issue. So that's where I am on it. Okay. But it would be good if you all out there actually have more defined opinions, stronger opinions, and you don't waver. You're not doing the cowardly waver thing like Dr. Jace is. You're actually standing firm and saying, yes, it should be protected, or no, it shouldn't be. If you've got a solid opinion, go with it. I do not consider that closed-minded at all. I like it when you all have solid opinions, and your solid opinions do not have to be my opinions. You don't have to agree with me whatsoever. You don't have to agree with me at all. And as I just said, there's nothing really to agree with here with me because I am undecided on it. And quite frankly, I wish I weren't undecided on it, but I am. And, that is not necessarily the noble position to be undecided. So if you do have a strong opinion and your opinion is based on facts and based on the considerations of the well-beings of other people have added. That is awesome. Okay, I am going to leave it right there. I am Dr. Jace, and this class I feel is going at a proper pace, so keep it up, and I will see you next week in a sync session next Tuesday.